Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to yet another video. As you can see before us, we have today the one and only Linux Mint. This is the screen that you get greeted when you install Linux Mint. So it says, welcome to Linux Mint, welcome to your new operating system. The welcome screen will guide you through the first steps. We're going to see how. Have a great time and don't hesitate to send us your feedback. So after the welcome screen, you have your first steps, which is you can pick your desktop colors to make yourself a home. Let's say you don't really like the green of the Linux Mint, so you can make it, let's say, you can make it this color. All right, so as you can see, the accent color has changed. Let's change it again. I like this color. We're going to keep it for this video. And you can also switch between light mode and dark mode, which is quite honestly one of the first things that I do when I install Linux Mint. I have been using it for like 2 to 3 months on my Core 2 Duo machine, and it runs amazing. So let's go ahead. Oh, and dark mode looks really good on this. Look at the file manager for a change. Oh yeah, that's incredible. All right. So you can also change the panel layout to a more traditional approach or a modern approach. So traditional would be something like, say, XP, for example. So in XP, you had these titles along with a little description of what the window was that was open. So that is desirable for some people, but I like it the more modern way, so we're going to stick to that and we're going to move on. Oh, and by the way, this is in a virtual machine because it's my only computer and it's my work computer, so yeah, just getting it out of the way. Next up, we have system snapshots. I'm not going to perform system snapshots on this machine because it's virtual, like I said, but you should be doing this. It's very easy to set up. There are plenty of guides on YouTube. Just Google it and you will find it. This is kind of like system restore if you're coming from Windows land. So this will help you to instantly back up and instantly get your system up and running if you tend to break something in Linux Mint. Although the possibilities of breaking something in Linux Mint is less than average because it is a very stable, very rock solid distribution being based on Ubuntu 20.04 LTS. You also have your driver manager, you could launch it, and you also have your update manager. Now, one of the things I like about Linux Mint is this tiny little red icon. It says, welcome to the update manager. If we click on it, that's the update manager. It says apply security updates, software updates, system snapshots, everything. You hit OK. It shows you what updates you got. You can switch to a local mirror. I'm not going to apply updates. And it says to update the update manager, but we're not going to do any of that. But this is a very centralized area where you could basically automate everything that comes under the update umbrella. Moving on, we have system settings. We will check that out. Software manager and firewall, we will check all of those out. Let's minimize it and head over to the terminal. Oh, and by the way, this is the start menu for Linux Mint. It looks very much traditional, but I absolutely adore this style of start menu because let's say I have been around since the days of Windows XP. I also had Windows 98 in my schools. So having a start menu that kind of resembles them but is also modern and is this well polished, I absolutely adore this. Can I just take a minute to say I love how Cinnamon does a very modern and good implementation of GNOME 2 with keeping the retro aspects and the vibe. Like my introduction to GNOME 2 has been with Cinnamon, believe it or not. Anyway, enough talk. We're going to go into the terminal. And as is norm, we're going to type uname-a and check out the kernel. So this is 5.11 kernel. If you download Linux Mint from the website, like from the default page, you're going to get the 5.4 kernel, which comes with Ubuntu 20.04 LTS version. That's the LTS kernel. But if you are someone who games a lot and who uses, say, let's say Intel iGPUs or an AMD GPU, and you really love Linux Mint, you are going to benefit from the newer kernel because it's going to include the latest Mesa drivers, that is the open source drivers for gaming. Now, of course, if you want something to be very gaming centric, I would recommend going with a distro with a higher kernel number, or even you could manually change the kernel in Linux Mint if you know how to do that. But for a more noob oriented approach, maybe if you like to look at Pop! OS, or if you want the latest kernels and you don't want to mess around, you could just go with something like Pop! OS. Anyway, let's moving on. Let's see if we have htop installed, and we don't. So if you want to install anything, as you can see, it clearly says sudo apt install htop. I'm also going to install NeoFetch along with it. Let's type in our password, hit enter, and it says NeoFetch is already installed. Hit Y, and it's going to install htop for us. Now, while that happens, let me go ahead and open another terminal. So as you can see, right-clicking on any of these pinned icons gives you close, maximize, minimize, preferences, new window, and visible on all workspaces. You can move this to another workspace. Oh, it's already done. So let's go ahead and clear it out and type in NeoFetch. All right, so as we saw, 5.11 kernel, Linux Mint 20.2. It's an old computer, as you can see, and yeah, it's pretty. Let's run htop. And so on a fresh boot, it's installing 738. I believe this number would be lower if I did a restart and then fired up htop without doing anything else. But after a little bit of tinkering with the machine, after installing a few applications, 738 MB is very respectable, especially in this day and age where you have like a minimum of 4 to 8 gigs of RAM on your computer. So it's not really a concern. Moving on, let's check out the about portion in the system settings. Oh, so we don't have about. Let's go to settings then. System settings. Okay. So we have system info. This usually, I don't know, I use about in other distros and it comes up. So let's click, and there we have, we are running the 5.04 version of Cinnamon. We have this much amount of RAM and storage, and it basically doesn't say if it's running on X11 or Wayland. I believe you could do that through the terminal, obviously, but it doesn't show it over here. All right, now let's take a look at our system settings. As you can see, this is very simple, very attractive, and it also has all the things that you could want. So right off the bat, one of the best things about Linux Mint, about the Cinnamon desktop, is its themes. So this window is divided into a few portions: window borders, icons, controls, mouse pointer, desktop. So window borders, you could change it back to, let's say, Mint X. So these would change. If you change the icons, let's say I want Mint Y. As you can see, the icons change to green. Now if I change the controls to, let's say, orange, I'm just mixing and matching over here, guys, but the button colors, these change to orange. Now if you want to change the accent color, what you do is you click on desktop, and over here, let's say we're going for, let's say, sand, dark sand. So once you click on that, as you can see, your accent color has changed. It's getting very randomized. So yeah, you can also change the mouse pointer to something, let's say, add white to black. So that's that, but I like DMZ white on Linux Mint better, so let's keep it. And you can also add and remove themes. So you have famous themes like Adaptanocto, C Black, New Mix Cinnamon, New Minty. And in the settings, you have show icons in menus, show icons on buttons, jump to a position when clicking in a trough, using overlay scroll bars, override the current theme scroll bar width, and a few other things. You also have backgrounds. So under backgrounds, you have beautiful backgrounds for These are the default Linux Mint backgrounds with each point release, Uliana, Ulissa, Uma. You have plenty of amazing backgrounds to choose from. For this video, I'm going to go ahead and choose Georgia because it's one of my favorites. And for now, we're going to stick with it. Let's go into effects. So you have different effects such as window effects, effects on dialog boxes, menus, style, startup animation. You could also customize these settings. We're not going to go into it, but this is an easy option if you are a tinkerer and you would love to customize yours. Under preferences, you have accessibility, account details, applets. So applets are basically like your calendar, your display manager, your favorites, group window lists. You have a ton of applets under here. These are the applets that are already installed. If you want to download more applets, let's say you want to change the start menu, you have, I believe, Cine menu. So you could do that. So it's downloading the images. Once it does that, you are going to be presented with a list of popular applets. So for example, you have weather, cine menu, spices update. You have a ton of options inside. You also have the ability to change date and time, languages, screensaver, startup applications, online accounts, extensions, and quite a lot. Oh, and panel. Panel is very interesting. So this panel can be customized. I will come back to it after I complete the system settings, and we will take a tour of that. Under hardware, we have our display. So we are running at 1920 by 1080 right now. We have our software sources, firewall, driver manager. Let's click on software sources. Put in our password. And over here, you can manage the PPAs, the official repositories, additional repositories that you add, authentication keys. You could also do a fair bit of maintenance right from the GUI, which is fantastic. Like if you're a power user and you know your way around through the terminal, by all means, go for it. But if you are somebody who is very new to Linux Mint and you want to do some managing on your own through the GUI and you don't want to learn the terminal, this is a perfectly valid way of getting around the system. All right, so now that we've checked out system settings, let's move on to the famous panel of Linux Mint. As you can see, the start menu, we've talked about it earlier. This is the button to show the desktop icons, a few pinned apps, and this is the panel. Over on the right, we have a system report. Apparently, something needs my attention. I'm not going to worry about it for now. You have your update manager, you have your connection to your networks, you have your volume, you have your time. So right-clicking on the panel gives us a menu, a drop-down menu with panel settings, applets, panel edit mode. You could do a ton of things. You could center your icons, you could move these icons around, you could do a lot of things. Clicking on panel settings, you can auto hide the panel, you can change the panel height, you could change the appearance for each zone, so the left zone, center zone, right zone. You could do a ton of things with the panel. Now, if you don't like the look of your start button or menu button, right click on it, go to configure, and what I like to do is I like to change the icon. So you click on this button, wait for it, cinnamon symbolic, click select. Maybe I'll reduce the size of it a little. Let's say 20 or maybe 24, and I'm gonna write applications. That is super handy. You also have a few other behavioral options, and under menu, you could change categories. You could change the icons of each categories one by one. So that is pretty good. So now that we have a general idea about the Cinnamon desktop, let's go ahead and open the file manager. File manager in Linux Mint is Nemo, which IMO is one of the best file managers in Linux land. Basically, the thing that separates it for me is right-clicking on the desktop and open as root. So let's say you want to add some themes or do something under the root folder and you don't have access to it, you would have to go through the terminal and gain root access from there and copy paste some files or do whatever you want to do over there. Or you could download Nemo, which is a file manager here, in other distributions and go through a bunch of hoops basically. Over here, you only have to open as root. It'll ask you for your password, enter it, and boom, you have it. It's going to say elevated privileges and you have opened it as root, which is very handy and often needed for someone who wants to tinker with his computer. So over here on this left panel, you have your general home desktop documents and others. You have your network, you have your file system. So if you click on it, this is going to be your root folder and whatnot. Let's check out some of the default applications that come with Linux Mint. Now, since it's based on Ubuntu, some of the applications are going to be a bit old, but you can always install Flatpaks or maybe even Snaps. But then Snap support is disabled out of the box for Linux Mint, which, well, I'm not going into a debate, but it is a good thing. Well, there, I said it. And so let's move on and let's look at these applications. So under all applications, you basically have everything. Under accessories, you have your archive manager, calculator, character map, document viewer, files, fonts, basically things that would fall under accessories. Warpinator is a very cool, handy little tool. Basically, if you have an Android app called Warpinator and you have Warpinator installed here, you would be able to wirelessly transfer your files between your Android and your Linux Mint PC, which is very handy. You don't have to set up any IP addresses or anything. Just download both apps, run them, they will pair, and you are ready to go. Under graphics, we have document scanner, drawing, and pics to organize our images. Under internet, obviously we have Firefox, but let's open it. Let's see the version number. So Firefox is actually recent, it looks like. Let's go to help and about. So yeah, 89. It's not the recent, but once you run the update manager, it's going to be 93 or 94, which is the latest version of Firefox. All right. So you also have your hex chat for those of you who know what that is. Thunderbird mail transmission for downloading torrents and web apps. Web apps is very interesting. So let's say you want Duolingo to exist not as a web page, but as an app. You could basically open this app and you could click the plus button. You add a name, you add the URL to the website, you choose an icon, you hit the browser, you choose the browser basically, you enter the category, and you could also disable or enable the navigation bar or the incognito window mode, and you hit OK. Now once you're set up, this will appear as an icon in your start menu so that you get the feel that it's an app rather than a website. Under Office, we have the whole LibreOffice suite. Let's open Writer and see the version. Now, while Firefox may be very advanced in terms of the version that's available, I think LibreOffice is not going to be as much. So we have the version 6.4.7.2, which is a little old. Let's see if dictionary support is enabled out of the box. This is Linux Mint. I love it. Okay, so no dictionary support out of the box. This does go to show that some distributions include it out of the box, some don't, but it's really not a big deal for an average user, or any user rather. So after Office, you have sound and video. Celluloid is a front end for MPV. You have Hypnotics, which I personally use to watch international TV shows, and Rhythmbox is your trusty old music player. You also have administration, so these are your advanced tools for Driver Manager, HTOP that we just installed, Printer, Software Manager, Software Sources, Synaptic Package Manager, and other sorts. Under Preferences, you basically get your settings, so display, extensions, hot corners, etc. And here you have your places and recent files. Let's quickly jump ahead into the Software Manager, and we're going to check out how it looks, how it feels, and what kind of software we have available. Okay, after it's generated the cache, here we are into the Software Manager. It looks pretty. So over here you have your editors pick. So for gamers, go with Steam. For productivity people, go with Blender, GIMP, Sublime. You have 2 versions of wine, I'm not sure. You also have FileZilla, and under here you have the categories. And what's good is you have a category called a flat pack. Let's click it. So you have, oh, so this is actually very handy. So if you know what flat pack is, and if you're looking for it, you could easily click on flat packs and scroll down a list of your needed flat packs. So what I would recommend is for the apps that you need to keep updated, go to Flatpak and install those apps. All right, so now that we're done with the desktop, I would like to thank you for watching my video on Linux Mint 20.2. It's going to be December soon, and around the time of Christmas, they will release 20.3, so stick around for that video. Subscribe if you liked it, and I will catch you guys next time. Peace!